Over the past year, we've been talking a lot about what it looks like to be totally devoted to God's plan for our lives and how we can be reaching our full potential, not just individually, but also as a church. Today, we're talking all about how we can experience God finishing the work He's begun in us and how we can finish strong. Well, hey everyone, I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome to Epic Everywhere, practical teaching to help you grow in your faith, no matter where you are on your spiritual journey. And a special shout out to everyone who's joining us for the first time. Hey, we've been expecting you, and we'll share some ways that you can get connected here at Epic in just a moment. If we haven't had the chance to meet yet, my name is Emily, and I'm the pastor for Epic Online, and you picked a great day to be here. We're kicking off part 2 of our all-in series called Finish Strong, learning how we can really max out on all that God has in store for us and not just get a good start, but how we can finish the race that He's set before us and finish it well. Well, as we get started here today, I want to make sure that we can provide you with the best possible experience. I don't want this just to be a place where you come and go. I want you to leave better and more equipped than when you came. So step 1 is to take time to text in. This is a simple thing that you can do, but it has a big impact on your experience and how connected you feel. So we're going to text in together right now. You can do that by texting here to the number on the screen, 215-999-8575, or you can scan the QR code that we've got up. When you text us, we're going to send you a link to our Next Steps Hub. We've got some resources for you as a part of today's episode, and the Hub, that's where you're going to find everything that you need. And if you're new, be sure to text in. When you do, we've got a free tea that we want to mail to you, and we've also got a special invite to our upcoming welcome party. Well, at the top of the Hub is a spot where you can drop a prayer request. We pray over every single request that comes in, so if you need prayer over something, or maybe you've got something to celebrate, let us know. March is officially here for all of you college basketball fans. This is pretty much your month, March Madness, baby! But it's also a special month for us as a church. At the end of this month, on Friday, March 29th, we'll be premiering a special Good Friday experience for you right here on YouTube. And then Easter is coming. Easter at Epic is going down on Sunday, March 31st. Our team's working really hard to make sure this is an experience that you're going to be proud to invite your friends to. And then in a little less than 3 weeks, on March 23rd, is one of my favorite events of the year, the Philly Egg Hunt. We can't wait to welcome thousands of people from all across the Philly area. And hey, have you signed up to volunteer yet? Yes, you. If not, we need your help. So go ahead and click the link in the Hub or head to phillyegghunt.com to do that today. Well, lastly, up on the Hub, you'll see a button where you can give. From the Philly Egg Hunt to gathering for church in and around our city and here for Epic Online, I'm so thankful for everyone who gives. You really help us fuel the ministry and the impact that we get to have as a church. So thank you so much. If you'd like to give, you can do that on our Hub, or you can go ahead and head to our website, epic.church/give. Well, the time has come for this week's message, so let's get to it.
Well, hey everybody, my name is Kent. I'm lead pastor here at Epic, and I'm so glad that you're doing church with us today because we're kicking off the second half of a 2-year-long growth journey called All In. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, or in case you need a little bit of a reminder, I want to start by taking a few minutes and show you the video that we used to kick this off 1 year ago. It shares some of our story, some of our heart, and some of our hopes for the future. Check this out. So this is where it all began. In the summer of 2008, a handful of us came together around a dream to start a church that we hoped would really make a difference in our city. We didn't want to be just another church. Philadelphia already had plenty of those. What our city needed was a different kind of church. The kind of church that wasn't just for church people, but a church that was for everyone. We wanted more than anything to be a place where people who were far from God would discover that they didn't have to be. We wanted people at Epic to do more than just attend and listen, but actually do something with what they've learned each week, living out their faith in new and more meaningful ways. We knew that at the end of the day, only God had the power to change a person's heart. And so we committed to simply make the introduction. And over again, person after person, story after story, God stepped in and did what only He could do, change people's lives. Since 2008, Epic has grown from one church in one location with one service to 4 churches and 7 services every weekend. And over the years, we've seen thousands of people make a connection to God that has changed their lives for forever. So many have stepped across the line of faith and found hope in life through Jesus. So many have found peace in the middle of their storm, found purpose where there was none before. Friendships have been formed, marriages have been restored, and people of every color and every shade and from every corner of our city have come together as a church, as a community, as a family to do some pretty amazing things. Together, we've been building something so much bigger than any one of us could have imagined. We've served the poor and fed the hungry. We've helped those who struggled to help themselves. We've valued those who just needed to know their worth. We've created fun for families, put smiles on faces. We've invested our time, our money, and our energy to unleash wave after wave of generosity and love on the people around us. And every week, more and more people have stacked hands around this little dream of ours to build a church that would impact a city. Which brings us to where we are now. Amazed at all that God has done in our past, but ready to step into all that God has planned for our future. See, we are on the verge of the greatest season we've ever seen as a church. Greater impact, greater influence, greater growth. And while I believe that God wants to do something great through us, I believe He wants to start by doing something great in us. You see, just before God's people crossed the Jordan River and entered the Promised Land, it says that Joshua told the people to consecrate themselves because tomorrow the Lord would do amazing things among them. He says, hey, if you want to see God do something amazing tomorrow, then you've got to be willing to consecrate yourselves today. What He was calling them to was total devotion. He was calling them to be people who'd say, God, all that I am, all that I have, it's all for you. I'm all in. Could it be that we're just across the river from something amazing, but that God is calling us first to total devotion, to step away from contentment and step up in commitment? And so we're inviting you to join us in something we're calling All In. It's a 2-year growth journey toward total devotion and reaching our full potential. We have 2 goals. The first is 100% engagement. We want every person at Epic to go all in and engage in the journey toward growth and total devotion. And that means all of us taking steps toward even greater levels of faith, trust, love, and generosity. Our second goal is to advance the mission of our church by coming together to give $5.8 million over the next 2 years. The majority of that will go toward our general operating budget. That's everything it takes for all 4 of our churches to function well over the next 2 years. But I'm telling you, there's nothing general about it. In fact, what happens as a result of that budget couldn't be more special. People's lives are changed. See, what I love about our church is that it's different. There's lots of churches for church people, but we get to be a church that's for everyone, regardless of where they are on their spiritual journey. I love seeing the difference knowing God and following Him makes in the life of a person. And we just think that everyone should have that opportunity. And so we want all of our churches to be able to provide an excellent experience from the street to the sea. This will position us to impact our city in greater ways than ever before. Over the next 2 years, we want to continue to grow, make improvements, and to take advantage of the opportunities that God gives us along the way. This is what's going to enable us as a church to go further, faster,
First, it's time to invest even more into the next generation by enabling our teams to better serve families and students. So we want to set an anchor of faith in the heart of every child and every teenager so that we can leave a legacy that will last for generations to come. Second, we really believe that church online is a critical component to our success now and in the future. To that end, we want to make sure that we continue to innovate, continue to develop our online strategies and programming so that more and more people can get connected and stay connected whenever or wherever they happen to be. Third, considering our current cultural context, it's vital that we as a church do all that we can to serve and love our city in extraordinary ways. We are for Philly, and it's not enough to just say it. We gotta show it so that people know that we're here, are glad that we're here, and are better off because we're here. Fourth, we've invested significantly in renovating this 24,000 square foot building right here in the heart of Roxborough. This facility serves as our broadcast location, as meeting space during the week, and as our central offices for all of our locations. But now we need to pay for those renovations, and there are still some projects associated with this building that need to be funded so that we can optimize this space so it can better serve our needs. Fifth, we're so fortunate to have an amazing staff. But as Epic grows, it's important that we continue to add other great people to the team who can help lead us forward in key areas. You see, for all that God has done already, there are still so many more people in our city who desperately need to know God's love. There are still those who are searching, doubting, discouraged, and those who are losing hope. There are still those who are smiling but suffering, proud but need a hand, accomplished but empty, busy but without purpose, surrounded but all alone. And there are those who desperately need a different kind of church to help them make the connection to God. These are the people that we'll continue to exist for, hope for, pray for, risk for, sacrifice for, and expand for. These are the people that we will stop at nothing to share what God has shared with us, His unfailing love. See, that dream of ours to build a church that would impact the city, it's still coming true. But I've got a feeling that God is just getting started. So my challenge to you is to consider what it would look like for you to be all in. To love God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength. Not some, not part, but all. To live totally devoted and be radically generous like never before. It's what you were made for. To know God and to make Him known. See, we've been called to do more than just buy in. We've been called to sell out. It's all or nothing. It's now or never. You see, God has only ever done or given His absolute best for us. So together, let's go all in and give our best for Him. Total devotion, full potential, all in.
All right, so 1 year ago, almost to the day, I stood right here and challenged our church to go all in with their faith, to love God with all of their heart, soul, mind, and strength. And I invited you to go on this 2-year-long growth journey toward total devotion and reaching our full potential. And we hoped that this journey would result in personal and spiritual growth for every single one of us, that it would result in numerical growth for our church, and that it would result in growth in our collective generosity so that we could advance the mission of our church and really make a difference in our city. Well, now that we're at the midpoint of this journey, we're halfway there, you might be wondering, so how's it going? Now, I want to spend some time today just giving you a brief update so that we can celebrate some of what God has done already. And then I want to spend the rest of the time challenging you to go all in over these last 12 months so that you can finish strong. In fact, that's the title of this series, All In, Finish Strong. My hope, my prayer is that God would use these next 12 months not only to do something great through us, like collectively, but to do something great in us and to do something great in you. That this wouldn't just be business as usual or the status quo, but that we together would just go in a little deeper, that we'd push a little harder, and that we'd allow God to roll up His sleeves and go to work in our lives and in our hearts in a greater way than He ever has before. And don't you want that too? Yeah, I know you do. All right, so here's a little bit of the update. In a nutshell, I can basically say this. I've got good news. Aren't you glad? Like, aren't you glad I didn't say, look, in a nutshell, it's not good, people. No, we've got good news. So here we are, almost a whole year into this journey, and here's what I have to be able to share. Number one is we've grown as a church by 46% over the last year. Man, that's not just good, that's great. And it's really exciting. Our vision is to see every person in the city follow Jesus. You see, he's the only one with the power to change the human heart. And so we want that for everyone. He's the only one with the power to change the trajectory of a person's life and change their eternity. Like I said, we want that for every single person. And so 46% growth shows that what we're doing is working, right? That we're at least moving in the right direction because more and more people are being impacted. Another stat I want to share with you is this. Last year, we had 866 first-time guests. 866, which is huge because that's about twice as many as the year before. Again, that just shows like your heart for people and your willingness to invite people to come and be part of this thing with you in hopes that they would make a connection to God. Now, on top of all that, at least 120 people let us know that they made a decision to step across the line of faith and become a follower of Jesus. Now, that right there, that makes it all worth it. That makes serving on a team worth it. That makes inviting people worth it. That makes our giving worth it. Man, that's what makes all the stuff that we do to love and serve our city and serve our community well worth it. It makes it all worth it whenever you see a person be able to make a connection to God and have their lives changed by him. Now, you might be wondering, okay, so what about financially? Like, how's that going? Well, financially, we've received about 90% of what we hoped to receive by this point in the journey, which means that we're doing good, but we've still got some ground to make up. Essentially, we're running about 10% behind where we hope to be at this point. But listen, 90%, I'll take it. That's really, really, really good. And so we've got a lot to celebrate from this past year. And we've also been making a lot of progress on our 5 initiatives, if you remember what those are. Investing in the next generation, church online, for Philly, building projects around the Roxborough building, and building our staff team. Now, let me talk about Next Gen for a second. Now, our kids team works hard week in and week out to set an anchor of faith in the heart of every kid. And lately, they've been working really hard to build their team so that we can offer quality kids classes and kids programming at every service. But why is that? It was Jesus who said this. He says, "Let the little children come to me and do not hinder them." Okay, part of our job is to remove every obstacle so that our kids can come to Jesus. It's so important. Here, I want to share with you a note that a parent wrote to our team. Here's what she said. She says, "I just wanted to drop you a little note, as I know it's always nice to be able to share wins with the team. As you know, my child had a tough year, and I wasn't sure how she would do in Epic Kids since it was a new environment. Well, last night at bedtime, we were talking about how Jesus can help her be brave and strong. And then she said, 'And courageous?' And I was so surprised. I said, 'Yes, like definitely courageous.' And then she proceeded to recite the October memory verse. 'Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, for the Lord your God goes with you.' She said, I was totally floored and ecstatic. And so something is definitely sinking in. Isn't that awesome? You know what I know? Before that little girl ever walked into one of those classrooms, there was a team of people who thought about what the lesson plan was going to be, who prepared the room. There was a team of people who thought through how they were going to welcome the kids when they walked in so that they felt welcomed and it felt like a safe environment and a fun place to be. All kinds of things happened before that little girl ever even walked in the room. And I'm so glad it did, because look at the results. It's huge. A student ministry, they're crushing it too. We're seeing more and more teenagers discover their God-given gifts and talents, and then using those things for God's purposes. We see teenagers serving with the worship team and on the production team. Teenagers preaching their first sermons. In fact, I was talking to this one guy, and he just finished his second sermon ever. And I said, hey, how'd it go? And he goes, not so good. And I was like, tell me about it. Like, I have been there, brother. I know exactly what you're talking about. We got teens that are leading group discussions. I mean, it's awesome to see them growing in their gifts and then using them for God's purpose. So here's the thing, our teens, they're not just the church of tomorrow. Their time isn't just tomorrow. No, their time is now. And so that's Next Gen Church Online. As of right now, we've got more than 4,000 subscribers to Epic Online. And in 2023 alone, there were more than 70,000 views. What? Like, I don't even know what to do with that. Let's talk about Fort Philly. Through Fort Philly, we work really hard to serve and love our city in extraordinary ways. And so we do things like This Is Love, which is a whole month where we pour out a wave of generosity on our city. We do A Night to Remember, which is a prom for people with special needs. And now this year, we're going to be doing the Philly Egg Hunt, which will reach thousands and thousands of people in like a 3-hour span of time. It's going to be incredible. We've been working toward doing some building projects around the Roxborough building. First, we've been trying to pay off some of the renovations that we've already done in the building. And we've been doing some projects to try and optimize the building to better serve our needs. One of those that you'll never know about, probably 90% of people will never ever know this, but we paved the basement. Listen, can I tell you how big of a deal that is? It was just a dirt floor, and that was our storage area. So everything we had just had a thin layer of dirt all over it and had to be cleaned every single time. And so we got that done. We created a better and safer walkway toward our main entrance. We created a video LED wall in the auditorium, and we've done a bunch of general improvements around the building. Now, the last thing was building our staff team. And we've needed to add some great people to our team so we can help so they can help lead us forward in some key areas. Now, unfortunately, we haven't been able to fund any of those hires yet, but we hope to be able to do that soon. So that's where we're at with some of those things. And then there's all the teaching content that we've been through over this past year. Listen, over the last 12 months, we've asked God together, collectively as a group of churches, to make us, to shape us, to mold us. We've talked about fear and anxiety. We've talked about knowing your limits and setting boundaries and how to create some space. We've talked about the importance of having a biblical worldview and what even is that in the first place. We've talked about how to keep in step with God's Spirit. We've talked about living totally devoted to Jesus, becoming who God always dreamed for you to be. We've talked about habits, like every way you could talk about habits, starting habits, stopping habits. We've talked about having the will to keep going. We've talked about how to live life more wisely, to tell yourself the truth, how to tame your tongue, how to have quality friendships. Each week, we've done our very best to try and leave you challenged and encouraged. And so if you step back and you look at all of it that's happened over the last 12 months, I'd say that we've made some pretty significant progress. But listen, All In wasn't just about the church growing. And it wasn't just about reaching a financial goal. And it wasn't even just about what we could accomplish together. No, All In was also about each of us growing spiritually. And so this wouldn't be much of an update if I didn't stop and just ask you, how's it going? Like, how's that going for you? How has God used this last year? How has God used All In to help you grow spiritually? It could be something that He's taught you, something He showed you. Like, what have you done with all of this teaching? How have you applied it, Because the value of teaching is not in having more knowledge. The value of teaching is in applied knowledge. And so how have you applied this stuff to your life? How's it going? And for some of you, this is an easy question to answer. You can immediately think of like a dozen different ways of how you've grown over this past year. For others of you, this is a little more difficult of a question to answer. And it's almost like you need a little bit of a reset or a refresh or maybe even a restart to say or something like that. And so over the next few weeks, we're going to talk about what it means to be all in. And I'm going to challenge you to lean into these last 12 months so that you can finish strong, to make the most of these next 12 months so you can grow in your faith and grow in your love for God. Now, part of that is also going to be a challenge to make an all-in financial commitment to help advance the mission of our church so that we could impact more people. You might be wondering, so wait. Why is there a financial part to all of this? And more than anything, it has to do with our hearts. You see, Jesus taught that where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Like, where you send your dollars is a good indication of what has your heart. And so can you really be all in and not include honoring God with your money, honoring God with the thing that most people hold most tightly to their hearts, like their dollars? No, I don't think that you can. In fact, I'd say this: even if someone came along and said, you know what, I'm just going to write a check to cover the rest of our goal for all in, like that whole financial part, I'm just going to take care of it. Even if somebody said they would do that and did it, we would still do this financial part. And you're like, wait, now you're just being greedy. No. It's because where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. This isn't about reaching a financial goal. This is about our hearts. And so, in order to help you grow in your faith and grow in your love for God over the next 12 months, we created something that will be a tool for you a tool to help you. It's an all-in spiritual health assessment tool. I'm not kidding. That's literally the name. And sometimes it's better to be clear than it is to try and just be clever. And so it'll take you about 5 or 10 minutes to complete this little survey tool. And the results will help you identify where you've made some progress over the past year and can help you celebrate those areas, but also to help you identify some areas to work on going forward. And we'll put a link to that in the hub. Now, to help with the financial part of all of this, we've actually created a digital commitment card. And at the end of this series, we're going to ask you to look at that, fill it out, and then turn it in. And I want to go ahead and tell you what's on that card so you know ahead of time. So the first part is this: if you've already made a financial commitment to All In, then you're going to have the opportunity to affirm that you intend to finish strong with the commitment that you've already made. Or you could be in a position where you're like, you know what, man, God's really blessed me this past year, and I want to increase. I just kind of sense God nudging me to increase my commitment, and I want to do that. You could do that as well. And if for whatever reason you didn't make a commitment last year, or maybe you weren't even here when we talked about all of this last year, you can also use that card to say, you know what, I'm all in. Like, I want to join the journey. I want to help advance the mission of our church as well so that we can impact more and more people. Now, as I was thinking about today and what God might want to say to us as we start the second half of this all-in journey, I thought of something that the Apostle Paul wrote to a group of Christians in Philippians chapter 1. These Christians were a part of the church that Paul actually started in Philippi, which is in Greece. And he started this church about 10 years prior to writing this letter to them. In fact, he probably hasn't seen them in about that long, in about 10 years. It's been a long time because travel back then was so difficult. And so he writes them this letter. And in this letter, Paul says something that I think is a game changer when it comes to living out our faith. I'm telling you, so many people never really reach their full potential because of this one thing. And gang, I think if you get it, like if you get this, then it will help reframe the last 12 months and help reframe the next 12 months as you move toward God. All right, so here we go. Philippians chapter 1, verse 3. He says, I thank my God every time I remember you. I remember he hasn't seen these people in like 10 years, but it says that every time he thinks of them, he stops and he thanks God for them. Now, this wasn't just a casual relationship that he had with these people. No, it was much more than that. I mean, can you think about who that might be in your life? Do you have anybody in your life that when you just think of them, you stop and thank God for them? See, their hearts, Paul and these people, their hearts were knit together. Well, why is that? He goes on, he says this, he says, in all my prayers for all of you, I always pray with joy because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. He says, hey, whenever I pray for you, I can't help but smile because we've got history. Like we've been through some stuff together. For 10 years now, even though it's been from afar, we've been working together to help build this church. Like we've partnered together to see as many people as possible have their lives changed by Jesus, just like he's changed ours. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, that's epic. Like that's our story. That's our church. And can I tell you that every time I see or think about the people who've helped build this thing over the years, I can't help but smile. Why? Because we've been through some stuff together. More importantly, because we've been on mission together. Like from day one, we've been about one thing. We just want people to know God and have their lives changed in the same way that we've had the chance to know God. and have our lives changed. And every week, more and more people have stacked hands around this dream of ours to build a church that would impact a city. He goes on, and then here he gets a little personal. Here's what he says in verse 6. He says, being confident of this, that he, talking about God, who began a good work in you, will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Here, he reminds them that the moment that you become a follower of Jesus, the moment you become a Christian, God begins doing something good in you, like on the inside of you. Like he begins to change you from the inside out. It doesn't happen all at once. No, it's a process. But here, he says he's absolutely confident that given the chance, God will finish the good thing that he started in you. You know, sometimes I think that people stall out in their faith, kind of quit, walk away, find themselves in a place where they're just kind of wandering off because they don't trust the process. Like most of us are honest and self-aware enough to be like, you know what? I'm a mess. Like left to myself, I am a mess. And so we're most of us are willing to say, you know what, God, I'm a mess. Will you fix it? And then God looks back at us and he says, okay, follow me. And so we do that for a while. But then we get a little frustrated because it's just not happening fast enough. And so we say, God, I'm a mess. I just need you to fix it. And God's like, I will, but I just need you to follow me. You see, fix it is all about right now. Follow me is all about a process. And that is what God invites us into when we follow him. See, what Paul knew, what he was confident of, was that the moment that you become a follower of Jesus, God invites you into this process. God invites you into this journey where over time, he'll begin to change you from the inside out. It's an inside out kind of faith. You see, the end game for a Christian is maturity. And you can't rush maturity. You can cram for an exam, but you can't cram for growth. No, growth takes time. It's the law of the harvest. You plant a seed and then you wait. You just have to wait. It takes time. And so Paul is saying, I'm absolutely positive that God is doing a good work in you and that it's a process, that you are in process, and that eventually this good work that God is doing on the inside of you is going to start coming out of you. It won't be something that's forced. It won't be something that's kind of put on by you. It won't be the result of your own efforts. No, it'll just start bubbling up out of you because of what God is doing on the inside of you. But it's gonna take time. So my question for you is this: are you willing to allow God to finish what he started? Like, are you willing to allow God to finish what he started? Because it's good. Like, it's so good. But it takes time. Are you willing to allow God the time that he needs to roll up his sleeves and go to work on the inside of you? Are you willing to trust the process enough to allow God to change you from the inside out? Starting with your heart, and then your soul, and then your mind, and then your strength. You see, following Jesus, it's not about behaving like Jesus. It's about becoming like Jesus. See, behaving like Jesus is just your actions. But when you become like Jesus, the actions will follow. Gang, if you'll do that, you'll grow. You'll mature. And you'll become secure and confident in who you are because you're becoming the person that God is calling you to be. You'll find your identity in him and in what he's doing in you, instead of finding your identity in what you're trying to muster up on your own. Gang, that's how you finish strong. You lean in, you trust the process, you allow God the time to go to work on the inside of you and begin to change you from the inside out. And so here's a prayer that I would love for you to pray with me as we work our way through this series. Here it is. God, help me to see as you see and then do as you say. God, would you help me to see as you see and then do as you say? God, help me to see others as you see others and then do as you say. Help me to see danger
the way you see danger, and then do as you say. Help me to see my relationships the way you see my relationships, and then do as you say. Help me to see my time the way you see my time, and then do as you say. Help me to see my money the way you see my money, and then do as you say. You see, being all in means being willing to allow God to finish what he started, because it's good. It just takes time. You know what I want to see over the next 12 months? I want to see a revival in our hearts. I want to see you experience God at work in you. And then we'll see God at work through you. But first, I want you to see God at work in you. Because when that happens to a church, some really incredible things start to happen around the church. Number one, the singing gets better. Seriously, I mean that. And here's why. It's because people find themselves falling in love with Jesus all over again. Relationships are restored. Because those who've been forgiven much can't help but love much. People begin to love their community well. Why? Because God so loved us that he gave, and we can't help but emulate him. We begin to love others and are willing to give. There's a sense of momentum that begins to start and grow and build, and more people are impacted. Why? Because a passion for God is contagious, and it's hard to extinguish. God's people, it's my favorite, actually start longing for God to use them. Like in their day, as they're at work, as they're walking around in their everyday life, they start looking and longing for God to use them, and they look for the opportunities along the way. And I was talking to somebody a few weeks ago, and he pulled me aside after church, and he says, not long ago, we prayed that prayer, God, would you make me bold? He's like, I just want you to know that I started praying that prayer. I got to tell you what happened. He was off in Chicago and out for a job interview, a residency thing that he was doing. He's with a group of people, and they're walking around. They were outside. It was super cold. He saw this guy who didn't have a hat, scarf, gloves, nothing. You could tell he was really cold. The guy was asking for some help, for some support, and maybe normally would just kind of walk by, but there was just something about this interaction that he kind of leaned in. He remembered that prayer, God, would you make me bold? And so he just kind of broke away from the crowd. He walked over to the guy and reached down in his wallet, pulled his wallet out and looked, and he had no cash, nothing, and nothing to give this guy except for a $100 gift card to Walmart. It was actually his birthday gift that he had just gotten. And trust me, this wasn't like a gift card that was forgotten and just kind of in there and hadn't, messed with in forever. No, he had plans for this gift card. He just looked at that thing. In that moment, he just felt God nudge him. And here's what he said. He looked at the guy. He says, listen, this is my birthday gift, but God loves you so much. I believe that he wants me to give it to you. And he gave him the gift card. So the guy gave him a big hug. It's like this big moment. Gang, when we allow God the time to go to work on the inside of us, it eventually bubbles up on the outside. I want that for you. I want that for me. I want that for all of us. But we can't give up too soon. We've got to trust the process and allow God to finish the good thing that he started. That's what it takes to finish strong. And so as we work our way through this series, man, I hope that will be a prayer. God, help me to finish strong. I want to be open to whatever it is you want to do in and through me. But God, first, would you do something in me? And we're going to get there together. So real quick, let me give you some homework. Homework? Yeah, homework. All right, here we go. First thing is this. Man, I want you to be here every week in this series. It's 4 weeks long. Be here every week in this series. It's going to take us all the way up to Easter. And then number 2, I want you to take the spiritual health assessment. Make sure you do that, and then find an area that you want to work on over the next 12 months, and then use the resources to start doing that. And then number 3, would you be open to listen to what God may want to do in and through you in this series? Just be open to what God may want to do in and through you in this series. I think you'll be surprised to find out all God can do when you're open. Yeah. Let me pray for you. God, we love you. Thank you so much that you first loved us. Lord, I just pray
as we step into all in, finish strong, that you would allow us to reframe these next 12 months in a way that we're dependent on you doing a work in us, that we'd be open to it, that we wouldn't do anything to hinder it, but that God, we would lean in your direction and allow you to do what only you can do in our hearts and in our lives. God, help us to finish strong. As we continue to pray, I'm sure there are those of you who are like, man, you talk about God like you can have a relationship with him. You can, and it changes everything. And so if that's you, if you're like, man, I didn't know I could have a relationship with God, but if that's a thing, then I want that. And I want to ask you to just pray this prayer with me. Say, Jesus, I ask you to be the forgiver of my sin and the leader of my life. God, help me to follow you with my whole heart. I give you my life. Thank you so much that you love me, that you got good plans for me, and thank you for adopting me into your family as a son or as a daughter. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, hey, if you prayed that prayer, do me a favor. On the hub, there's a button that says follow Jesus. Click that button. Let us know you made that decision so we can celebrate with you and send you some follow-up information. You'll be really glad that you did. Congratulations. That's awesome. Hey, I love you guys. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Kent, for that message. I'm so grateful that we're not a church that just settles in, but we're a church that chases hard after all that God has for us, truly believing that the best days aren't behind us, but they're ahead of us. And Kent gave us some guidance on what we can be doing to be all in, how we can be finishing strong. Number one, be here every week of the series. See what God can do on the other side of your consistency. Number two, take that spiritual health assessment. We've got a link for that up on the hub, and this is really the perfect way that you can determine where you are and get some resources on how you can grow from there. And then number three, be open and listen to what God may want to do in and through you. We're all running this race at a different pace. We've all got different lanes to occupy, so be sure to be spending time with God and slow down long enough to be able to hear his whispers, and then be obedient in following him wherever it is that he's leading you. Well, if you've already made the decision to follow Jesus and you haven't been baptized, be obedient in signing up to make that happen. We've got baptisms coming up in 2 weeks on March 17th. So we've got options for you if you're in the Philly area, and we've got options for you no matter the city and state that you're in. So all you have to do is sign up on the hub or epic.church/baptism, and we'll take care of the rest. And hey, thank you so much just for being here today. God's on the move, and he's just getting started in your life. I can't wait to see you right back here next week.